I talk a lot about Cartoon Network and what it means to me back then and today. The channel has evolved quite a bit during its 4-decade history, but I want to talk about my favorite era of CN, and that's Powerhouse. Powerhouse, named after Raymond Scott's music score using several Warner Bros. Cartoons, was the third and most popular era of Cartoon Network's history. I feel like even though I also grew up with the later half of the checkerboard era, the city era, and bits of the news and early Check-It, this particular era resonated with me so much because, especially in its earlier years, it felt like the channel was aimed at not only towards kids, but also animation fans. After all,
everybody loves cartoons!
Something I feel that's sorely missing nowadays. Nothing against current CN, mind you, so because you asked, all 0 of you, I took the liberty of making a complete timeline of the Powerhouse era, from 1998 to its end in 2004. We'll be going over everything, blocks, bumpers, show debuts, and more. We got a lot to get through, so let's not waste any time, let's get started. 1998. Okay. No copying more successful YouTubers, I know. In March of 1998, Cartoon Network launched Powerhouse, a new update to the channel, which was accompanied by new bumpers and graphics. These newly animated bumpers were a noticeable contrast to the checkerboard pattern with recycled animation ID spots that came before it. These new commercial bumpers were done by Atlanta-based animation studio Primal Screen, which would do a lot of CN promotional material. Funny story, once I got to meet one of their former animators to ask for a job at an animation studio he owned in my hometown. I didn't get the job, but he did give me this layout sheet of Porky Pig for the Fancy Anvil Awards show. But back to what I was saying, these bumpers would depict a typical scene from the show you're watching, with a sample of Powerhouse mixed with the show's theme. Most noticeably, the backgrounds were given color schemes to fit the time of day the cartoons were airing. For example, weekday mornings the backgrounds would be yellow, in the afternoon they would be green, evenings blue, and for nights black. Additionally, more generic bumpers were created for cartoons airing on a network that wasn't owned by Time Warner, such as the 80s revival of Alvin and the Chipmunks. Debuting this year will be the Powerpuff Girls. Originally introduced as a short from world premiere Toons, the show was about 3 crime-fighting kindergartners with superpowers, as they battled the villain of the week. For a while, this would be Cartoon Network's biggest hit, and a merchandising juggernaut, lasting for 6 seasons, specials, and a theatrical film. The show would end in 2005, but would end up being rebooted in 2016, and again as an upcoming live-action CW series by Diablo Cody. Yay! Acquired shows during this year will be Animaniacs and Batman the Animated Series. Both had just ended their run on Kids WB. Beetlejuice, the animated series based on the Tim Burton film, and on the Toonami side, Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, giving many kids their first exposure to anime. Also debuting this year will be Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater, hosted by the late Don LaFontaine. This Saturday night block will feature animated non-Disney films from Hanna-Barbera, Warner Bros., Universal, Don Bluth, and many others. Cartoon Theater would also premiere then new direct-to-video releases. The original format of the block lasted until 2004. Notable specials and marathons debuting this year was 50 Greatest Cartoons of All Time. Very fond memories of this. This was the first time I would see legendary animators like Chuck Jones and Jill Barbera, who would also become my animation heroes. June Bugs, a marathon of classic Bugs Bunny cartoons, minus the racially insensitive ones, running until 2002, and again from 2012 to 2013, and a Scooby-Doo marathon, Those Meddling Kids, 25 hours a due, airing on a day the clocks moved back for daylight savings time. The wraparounds would spoof MTV's The Real World with recycled animation from the cartoons. The wraparound segments would later be added as a bonus feature on the Scooby-Doo Greatest Mysteries VHS. Announcers this year will include Harry Shearer, Frank Welker, and the late Phil Hartman. And most memorable bumper of the year will be Boo Boo Baba Dee Dee.
We've got the biggest cartoon stars. How else can we explain it?
From Animal to Thorax.
Cartoon Network, screwy, ain't it?
1999 would kick off with the debut of Ed, Edd and Eddy, created by Danny Antonucci of Lupo the Butcher fame. The series featured 3 unpopular preteen boys with the same name who spend their summers scamming the neighborhood kids out of their money with their pursuit of jawbreakers. Notable for being the first CN original not to be introduced by a What a Cartoon short or produced by Hanna-Barbera or produced in the US. The show was very popular and would run on CN until 2009 with the TV movie Ed, Edd and Eddy's Big Picture Show. Currently, it's Cartoon Network's longest-running original series. Also debuting this year, Mike, Lou and Og, running until 2001, and another popular series, Courage the Cowardly Dog, a show about a timid pooch who have constant run-ins with the supernatural. The series would end in 2002, but had a successful life in reruns, as well as the only cartoon to have a complete series released on DVD. Cow and Chicken would end this year, but Johnny Bravo will return with new episodes without creator Van Partable's involvement, though he will return for the show's 4th and final season in 2004. Dexter's Lab would originally end with the made-for-TV movie Ego Trip. While receiving mixed reviews from critics, it would become a fan favorite. On the Toonami side, the robot Tom would make his debut and become the new host, replacing Space Ghost's Moltar. Notable blocks and marathons this year include Toonami's Midnight Run, Cartoon of the Day, Boy Girl, Movie Marathon, Millennium, and of course, Cartoon Fridays. Notable specials include The Big Game, Sylvester vs. Tweety, a spoof of the Super Bowl featuring classic Sylvester and Tweety cartoons, and The Scooby-Doo Project, a marathon of classic Scooby-Doo cartoons and movies celebrating the 30th anniversary of the franchise. The promotion was accompanied by a short film spoofing the Blair Witch Project. The short is pretty funny, and I recommend checking it out. Also introduced Shorties and Groovies, which were a collection of new animated shorts and music videos based on Cartoon Network, Hanna-Barbera, MGM, and Warner Brothers characters. Shorties feature a more cynical look at classic characters, with a different animation style in each short, while Groovies feature popular music artists performing original songs based on the shows. The most famous of these would be Jabberjaw by Payne. Also, disgraced Ren and Stimpy creator John Kricfalusi and his studio Spumco would make 2 new Yogi Bear shorts, Boo Boo Runs Wild and A Day in the Life of Ranger Smith. Joe Barbera was not a fan, and I'll just leave it at that. And notable bumper of the year will be Parking Lot.
That does it. I'm gonna start taking the bus away.
One notable event in 2000 was Cartoon Campaign 2000, Cartoon Network's first presidential election. Kids at home could go online and vote for their favorite candidate, which included cartoon characters such as Fred Flintstone, Dexter, Bugs Bunny, Brack, and Scooby-Doo. Not surprisingly, due to his resurgence in popularity at the time, Scooby-Doo was declared the winner and received 17.4% of the more than 750,000 votes received, and as such, he was given his own marathon. Debuting this year, the short-lived Sheep of the Big City, created by Mo Williams of Sesame Street and Nickelodeon's The Offbeats fame, as well as the Brack Show, C-Lab 2021, Harvey Birdman, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force. The latter 4 shows aired in the morning without advertising or publicity as a testing ground of what was to come. JBVO, a spin-off of Johnny Bravo, would also debut. This was a block hosted by Johnny, similar to the Moxie Show a decade earlier, where Johnny would take viewers' requests of what cartoon they wanted to see, which was anything from the Cartoon Network library, except half-hour shows. Sorry, Dragon Ball Z.
Okay, now back on Earth, those Namex dudes are recuperating. There's that guru guy. Oh, yeah.
The show was unsuccessful and ended in 2001. Also debuting was the anthology series, The Bob Clampett Show, showcasing many of his famous shorts from Warner Brothers and Toonami would acquire the rights to the anime Gundam Wing. Boomerang, which originally started as a block, became a spin-off channel which was now the home of many of the old Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, and MGM properties, once original programming started to take off. Special events this year include the Scooby-Doo Courage the Cowardly Dog Scare-a-thon and the Big Pig. Tom Clark will become the new announcer from the second half of the year all the way until early 2002. Memorable bumper of the year, Sheep in a Big Cafeteria.
Who you calling freak, freak?
Cartoon Network, the best place for cartoons.
This is why I never come here anymore.
In 2001, President Betty Cohn, one of the people responsible for the channel since the beginning, was stepped down from her position. When asked, she told a reporter, "I was afraid I would die the queen of cartoons." Her successor was Jim Staples, who would take over from 2001 to 2007. Debuting this year, Time Squad, Grim and Evil, The Chuck Jones Show, Warner Brothers Justice League, and Samurai Jack, created by Dexter's Lab's own Jenny Tartakovsky. Speaking of which, Dexter's Lab will be renewed for 2 more seasons without the involvement of Jenny, running until its finale in 2003. Also debuting this year, the late night block Adult Swim, with programming aimed at older audiences, featuring original adult animated comedies by William Street and uncut anime. Adult Swim would also be the new home of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Notable blocks this year include Cartoon Oleo, Primetime, The Best We Got, Cartoon Summer, and Toonami Super Saturday. Specials include The Big Game, Bugs vs. Daffy, Night of the Living Dew, and The Flintstones on the Rocks. And most memorable bumper of the year, Always on a Run, an obvious parody of the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night. Jumping over to 2002, the channel's 10th anniversary, we will see the debut of the special event, the Fancy Anvil Award Show, live in stereo, hosted by Johnny Bravo. It was an obvious parody of the Oscars that showcased many of clips of various Cartoon Network, Hanna-Barbera, MGM, and Warner Brothers cartoons. It also featured live-action guests such as the late Robin Williams, Charles Barkley, Sandy Duncan, and Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. Scooby-Doo also received the Lifetime Achievement Award, and the highlight of the special was a short but sweet memorial dedicated to legendary animators like William Hanna, Maurice Noble, and Chuck Jones. The latter had recently passed a month earlier. Notable shows debuting this year include Whatever Happened to Robot Jones, codenamed Kids Next Door, and Baby Looney Tunes, acquired from Warner Brothers. The Powerpuff Girls movie was released to theaters this year, and while Warner Brothers didn't market the film well, it was promoted heavily on Cartoon Network, with several marathons to boot. The film received positive reviews from critics, but was a bomb at the box office. In addition to poor marketing, it was also released the same summer as Spider-Man, Men in Black 2, Like Mike, Lilo and Stitch, and a live-action Scooby-Doo, so it had quite the competition. So far, it's Cartoon Network's first and only theatrical feature. Notable blocks and marathons this year include Cartoon Weekend Summerfest, Ed and Eddie's Pool Party, and Scaretoon Fright Days. Also, The Iron Giant will make its premiere this year, and a 24-hour marathon will lead to a spike in its popularity, ultimately becoming a cult classic. Also, actor Doug Priest would take over as announcer until 2002. And most memorable promo of the year, Scrappy Loses It.
Cartoon Network, the best place for cartoons.
Not for me! Not for me, man!
In 2003, Adult Swim was given a rebrand, and the bumpers of Old People Swimming were replaced by ones featuring pics of a handbook. It would also air weeknights, except for Fridays. In addition, already canceled and soon-to-be canceled Fox shows like Futurama and Family Guy were aired in reruns. These were proved to be so popular, it would lead to both shows being revived in 2010 and 2005 respectively. Debuting this year, Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and Evil Con Carne, spun out from Grim and Evil, Jenny Tartakovsky's Star Wars The Clone Wars, and from Warner Brothers, Teen Titans and Duck Dodgers. Also, acquired reruns include What's New Scooby-Doo, Totally Spies, and Code Lyoko. 2003 marked the end of Cartoon Fridays and will be replaced by Summer Fridays and Cartoon Network's Fridays. Until the fall, where the block was completely revamped into the New Fridays, featuring live-action hosts and new characters and shows. This version of the block would last until 2007. Memorable blocks include Camp Cartoon, Scooby Universe, Thanksgiving Day Cartoons Marathon, and Saturday Video Entertainment System, and a Cartoon Christmas. Specials include the infamous Groovenians and Cartoon Network's funniest bloopers and other embarrassing moments. The latter hosted by voice actor Tom Kenny. The special, as the title suggests, featured bloopers from various Cartoon Network shows. Interesting enough, many of these will be released as a bonus feature on the Kellogg's promotion, Scooby-Doo and the Toon Tour Mysteries. And memorable bumper of the year? This.
If Bugs Bunny was only here. Is there a doctor in the house?
I'm smarter than the average Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Girls, move out!
My cause is worthy.
And now we come to the final year of Powerhouse, 2004, where WB's Mucha Lucha aired the reruns, Mega's XLR debuted, and Toonami would be replaced by Magoozy. And fans welcomed the change with open arms.
What? What the fuck?
Notable events include Cartoon Network's All-Star Slam and May Movie Month. On June 14th at 6 a.m., the City Era rebrand will make its full debut. This era features a CGI city where the 2D Cartoon Network characters will interact, with the animation done by Australian-based Animal Logic. The look and scenery of the city was a big part of its appeal, and probably why people remember it fondly. In fact, looking back at these bumpers for this video, I did appreciate the novelty of all these characters from different shows living their lives, doing everyday tasks, and shooting the shit once in a while. Powerhouse may have introduced the idea of all these characters interacting with each other, but in my opinion, the City Era perfected it. I grew up in this area as well, and hopefully one day I'll do a video on it, so there you have it, the complete timeline of the Powerhouse era. Tell me what you think, and what was your favorite era? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly.
We'll return after these messages.
Today's video is sponsored by Liquid IV. Liquid IV is a hot new hydration drink that keeps you hydrated throughout the day. And if you work in a hot kitchen like me, you'll definitely need it. One stick of Liquid IV to 16 ounces of water gives you 2 to 3 times more hydration than water alone. You don't have to take my word for it. Take a look at the science of cellular transport technology, designed to enhance rapid absorption of water and other key ingredients into the bloodstream. Not only is it good for you, but they taste good as well. They come in all kinds of flavors, like passion fruit, lemon lime, and tangerine. My favorite is the passion fruit, and I have trouble sleeping at night, so the sleep multiplier drink is very effective, and I wake up feeling so good. Liquid IV is a great charitable company. With each purchase, they donate to someone in need, selling over 16 million servings globally and counting. You get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code 47cartoonguy. Again, go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code 47cartoonguy. Thanks again to Liquid IV for sponsoring this video. Now, on with the show.
The following may cause uncontrollable reflex movements of legs and feet. I don't know, but I heard tell.
Growing up in the 90s and 2000s, there was a lot of programming blocks aimed at kids, whether it be for Saturday mornings, weekdays after school, or in the evenings. But I want to talk about my favorite block, Cartoon Network's Cartoon Fridays. Now in this video, we're going to be taking a look at one of the most popular blocks that ever came out during our childhoods, and the many changes it went through over the years. So let's not waste any time. This is the history of Cartoon Fridays. First, let's go back to October 1st, 1992. Cartoon Network was launched and made history as the first ever channel to show cartoons 24 hours a day. That's right, no talk shows, no sitcoms, no court shows, just cartoons day and night. It was a great idea that became a huge success, becoming one of the top cable channels in the US and introducing a new generation of viewers to many Warner Brothers, MGM, and Hanna-Barbera cartoons, not to mention reimaginings of old favorites. By the late 90s, after successfully creating a weekday afternoon block that helped bring anime to the US, Cartoon Network wanted to compete with other cable networks with their own original programming in prime time. After all, Nickelodeon had the Nickelozone, Toon Disney had Magical World of Toons, and Fox Family had a whole bunch of crap. You never watched it! The result was Cartoon Fridays, the Friday night marquee block for Cartoon Network's original programming, which include their most popular shows like Dexter's Lab, Cow and Chicken, Johnny Bravo, Powerpuff Girls, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Ed, Edd and Eddy. More obscure shows like Mike, Lou and Og, Sheep in the Big City and Time Squad, to later hits like Billy and Mandy and Codename Kids Next Door. CCF was created by Stephen Patrick and Christina Agustinos, animated at Primal Scream Studios in Atlanta, and written by Chris Kelly and Billy Cohn, who would later be known for writing Cartoon Network and Adult Swim material. The block made its debut on the night of June 11th, 1999, and Cartoon Network promoted the heck out of it. I still remember those commercials at the time.
Somebody's coming!
We'll see you over there.
Who are you people?
CCF was a little different when it first started. In its original format, it was hosted by live-action actors and actresses. They would usually perform cartoon-related skits, parodying lottery shows, weather forecasts, astronomy, marching bands, and livestock auctions. You know, the stuff kids usually watch. As you might expect, this version wasn't exactly popular. So in June of 2000, CCF was given a major revamp, which was where we got to see the white studio setting, the huge ribbons, the Fridays disc, and that catchy opening theme. Each week, a character from the cartoons would host, like Johnny Bravo, Bubbles, Double D, Dexter, even Sheep from Sheep in a Big City hosted once. It was odd seeing how he communicates by bleeding. You couldn't tell if he was announcing the next show or telling a joke. Another huge part of CCF was the announcer, Tom Clark. The enthusiasm this guy had was amazing. Instead of being there just to do his job, Tom really brought a real energy to the show, almost as if he was excited to see these cartoons as we were.
So join Ed and Eddy next Friday at 7 for Cartoon Fridays, only on Cartoon Network.
His replacement, Doug Priest, was a little too bland in my opinion, not as engaging as Tom was.
This Friday at 7 for Cartoon Fridays, only on Cartoon Network.
I love seeing all these characters interact with each other. That was always the best part of the show. CCF also had many events during its run, like the Halloween party, the Christmas party, the Big Game Tailgate party, and the Big Pick. What was the Big Pick? Well, it was a successor of sorts to the What a Cartoon Show, featuring new animated pilots that would premiere during 2000 and 2001. It was held for fans to vote for which pilot would become a new series, which was where Codename Kids Next Door and Billy and Mandy came from. CCF was a huge hit. If you were a kid in the early 2000s, chances are you were watching it every Friday night, watching new episodes of your favorite shows. It brought Cartoon Network their biggest ratings during the 2001-2002 season. Even Nickelodeon tried to jump on a bandwagon with Friday Night Nicktoons. It was nowhere near as popular as CCF. During its final 2 years, it went through many changes. Tom Clark was gone, the Toons hosting wasn't as frequent as it was before, and there was the addition of non-cartoon cartoons, like Samurai Jack and What's New Scooby-Doo. Samurai Jack makes sense, seeing how it is a Cartoon Network production, but What's New definitely was a head scratcher for me. It was already airing on Kids WB at the time. They really couldn't find another time slot to put it in? Compared to the whole lineup of CN originals, What's New stood out like a sore thumb. Cartoon Fridays aired for the final time on May 16, 2003, and was briefly replaced by Summer Fridays. Then in October of the same year marked the debut of Fridays. This new version of the show had a You Can't Do That on Television / Laugh-In variety show style, and it featured live action hosts, new sets, skits, and characters. The opening was amazing, definitely some of Primal Scream's best work. It was so cool seeing every Cartoon Network, Hanna-Barbera, MGM, and Looney Tunes character running around CN Studios. The song was pretty catchy too. The two hosts were Tommy and Zinga. They were both funny, charming, and had great chemistry. You honestly couldn't wait to see them again. Zinga was later replaced by anime voice actor Tara Sands. She was okay, I guess. The hosts were accompanied by a group of kids and also some puppet characters. One of them voiced by Andy Murrell, the guy who voices Brack. I do remember some of the skits too, like the Big Guy Shimmy, Milkman Fred, and the Diner Lady. The cartoon name was dropped at this time, so the originals could still air along with acquired shows from Warner Brothers Animation. Fridays also had special guest stars like music groups or actors promoting the latest family flick. Granted, on CCF you might have gotten Coolio or the Apples, but Fridays really took advantage of having these stars. There was also musical guests like Amy Lee from Evanescence and Chris Brown.
That's neat.
Pre-Rihanna beating Chris Brown. While not as good as CCF, Fridays was a solid replacement. What could possibly go wrong?
Never mind.
Oh yeah, Fried Dynamite. I don't have really much to say about this one except it was pretty bad. Lame skits and obnoxious kid actors. Though to their credit, it looks like they're having a lot of fun. This was also during the time when Cartoon Network was starting to slum it with their cartoons, with some exceptions. I guess with this, Out of Jimmy's Head, and What Was to Come, this was the beginning of the network's decline in the late 2000s. There was also the Thursday night block, Har Har Thursdays in 2008, which didn't last that long. And CN wouldn't have another Friday night block until 2012. Now let me back up for a minute. In 2009, Cartoon Network launched CN Real, which showed live-action reality shows that were so generic Discovery kids didn't want them. It goes without saying that this block bombed pretty hard. I bring this up because during this time I wasn't really watching the network that much for this reason. Once in a while there were specials and marathons that caught my attention, but for the most part, it was a no for me. In fact, I was actually watching Adult Swim more than I was watching Cartoon Network. I was also in high school during this time, so I was also preoccupied with other stuff. But during the next few years, I was actually interested in Cartoon Network again. You see, they were going through a bit of a resurgence around this time, with new creator-driven shows. The live-action stuff was getting phased out, and this was the time I was getting into cartoons like Regular Show, Symbiotic Titan, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, and the Looney Tunes Show. Which brings me to 2012, marking the 20th anniversary of Cartoon Network. And they were celebrating in a big way, with all new bumpers, DVD releases, and most importantly, a new Friday night block, Cartoon Planet, debuting in March of 2012. Well, okay, not entirely new. It was a revival of the original block from the 90s. It marked the return of Brack and Zorak from Space Ghost Coast to Coast, once again voiced by the original actors. Rest in peace, C. Martin Croker, and thanks for the Cartoon Network hat. The block featured reruns of classic Cartoon Network shows, not seen on a network since the 2000s, and were unceremoniously dumped on Boomerang. As always, Brack and Zorak were the best part of the show, cracking hilarious one-liners and sketches to boot. Later on, the block became less about returning to old favorites and became more of a dumping ground for recent Cartoon Network shows. Cartoon Planet remained on the air even after the anniversary was over, and aired for the final time on February 2014.
When I say Friday, you say party. Friday, Friday.
Then in 2017, there was the Cartoon Network Friday Party, which, okay, let's just call it what it is. It was basically a Teen Titans Go marathon, so for the most part, a regular CN schedule. It's a shame because all these great shows and the Powerpuff Girls reboot were pretty much overshadowed by Teen Titans Go. I don't hate it, at least not anymore, but the oversaturation of it is pretty annoying. The Friday Party lasted until April of 2017.
It's the weekend! Start acting like it!
Overall, Cartoon Fridays may have ended, but I'll never forget the creativity, the laughs, and unforgettable characters I looked forward to every Friday night. For me, I think of it as my generation's Disney afternoon. It leaves just as big of an impact. What were your favorite moments for CCF? And what was your favorite era? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly. Close us out, Amy Lee.
If you lived here, you'd be home by now.
This video was brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. For a limited time, you can get 3 months absolutely free. For more info, visit getamazonmusic.com/cartoonguy. Link is in the description. Also, TeePublic. Get some of my latest tees and merch just in time for the holidays. Link is also in the description. When it comes to movie blocks on popular kids channels, for us millennials, growing up in the late 90s and the early 2000s, it's easy to have a favorite. You might have been a Netflix kid, a Disney Channel movie kid, or a Toon Disney double feature show kid. But for me, Saturdays at 7, I was glued right to Cartoon Network, watching Cartoon Theater. This was CN's movie block that aired every Saturday night, with an encore on Sunday. Sure, there was Mr. Spin's Cartoon Theater before, but this is what I remember the most. I recall watching Cartoon Theater as early as 1998. The block showed many non-Disney movies that were owned by Time Warner. So basically Hanna-Barbera specials and movies, animated movies starring DC Comics characters, and the Looney Tunes package films of the 70s and 80s. I loved the opening and the bumpers, with spoofs of Paramount, MGM, and Columbia Pictures. Every Cartoon Theater showing would open with a spoof of Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, with most of the Hanna-Barbera and Cartoon Network Primates characters howling at the logo. Of course, the little kid is not going to get the reference, but it's a clever joke to look back on once you get older and go, oh, now I get it. They also aired movies from Universal, mainly movies from Don Bluth and their sequels. This is where I first saw films like An American Tail and Land Before Time. There are also obscure movies like Twice Upon a Time. It's got a huge following nowadays, but I remember watching this as a kid and being totally confused. Most notably, its run on Cartoon Network was the last time it ever aired on TV. Movies from Paramount also found their way on the block, like the late 70s, early 80s Peanuts movies, and the animated Charlotte's Web. Cartoon Theater was also my introduction to the iconic Wallace and Gromit shorts from Aardman. When the latest direct-to-video film from Warner Bros. Was coming out, you could bet it was going to premiere on Cartoon Network a month later. In fact, the premieres of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost garnered the network huge ratings. Until I got the DVDs in 2001, no matter how many times I saw them, whenever they were the movie of the week, I would drop everything to watch them. That's how much I loved those movies. Dexter's Lab Ego Trip premiered on the block in December 1999. It was the first movie based on a Cartoon Network show. Those commercials leading up to the premiere was awesome. It used to give me chills as a kid.
This is incredible. Genius. The Earth is
Presenting Ego Trip, starring Dexter.
premiering Friday at 7 on Cartoon Network.
The Animaniacs direct-to-video movie Wacko's Wish would frequently air too. Highly underrated if you ask me. I do remember it disappeared once Nickelodeon nabbed the rights to Animaniacs reruns back in 2001. When Samurai Jack premiered, they sliced the first few episodes together as a movie, and they premiered on Cartoon Theater as Samurai Jack: The Trilogy. Let's not forget Cartoon Theater's special marathon and holiday blocks. For Halloween, there was a special double feature, mostly for Scooby-Doo and those two Alvin and the Chipmunks animated movies. For Christmas, there was the Holiday Spectacular, and on occasion, movie marathons and double features. The host was the late Don LaFontaine, the movie trailer guy, and he was great. There was a special type of gravitas he added that was just so genuine. It's like Tom Clark on Cartoon Fridays. He almost seems just as excited to watch these movies as the audience were.
The Stone Age meets the Space Age when Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents The Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, Saturday at 8 on Cartoon Network.
Anyone who says now back to the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones with this much enthusiasm is definitely doing something right. Sadly, he's no longer with us, and movie trailers haven't been the same, but I'll always remember the work he did for Cartoon Theater. May he rest in peace. During the final years of Cartoon Theater's original run, more and more movies were added, like Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, and the Pokemon movies. Even some weird ones, like remember Millionaire Dogs? Of course you don't. As Cartoon Network went through a huge retool, so did Cartoon Theater. 2004 marked the debut of the Popular City era. Cartoon Theater was still around, but Don LaFontaine was not. Instead, it was hosted by the announcer of CN at the time, Nikki, and the clever bumpers were replaced by original animation of Ed from Ed, Edd and Eddy as the theater usher. In addition to animated movies, live-action family films were now airing on the channel. I just remember finding this a bit odd. Though again, not as bad as what would happen later. Around the same time, several movies made their premiere on a new Fridays, like several Scooby-Doo movies, Ants, that stupid reanimated movie, Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, Dumb and Dumber. Even the short The Karate Guard premiered, one of the last good Tom and Jerry productions. Cartoon Theater would go on in different forms under different names, but it just wasn't the same. Nowadays, Cartoon Network has Acme Night, which seems to be a mix of movies and shows. Now, I've given up on arguing about live action on CN at this point, but some of these movie choices don't make a lot of sense. 17 again? She's the Man? Man of Steel? Freaking Marley and Me? Who knows? Stuff like this, and also the airing of Family Matters of all things, has the current CN look like another kids network, instead of an all-animation channel dedicated to cartoon lovers, like it once was. Sad really, but what can you do? Oh well. No matter how many incarnations it had over the years, to me and many other 90s kids, the original Cartoon Theater will always be the best. I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly. As you know already, I'm a huge fan of Scooby-Doo. I was introduced to reruns of the show in the mid-90s on the Turner stations, and I've been hooked ever since. I loved every incarnation that's come out, most of them, and it continues to be one of my all-time faves. And you could bet I'm going to see the new movie Scoob, whenever the hell that's coming out. Another favorite of mine is the Cartoon Network series, Courage the Cowardly Dog, with its dark and surreal atmosphere, likable characters, and scary images. Like most cartoons, it stood the test of time, and many people who grew up with it look back on it fondly, not just for the characters and the surrealism, but also the mature themes the show tackled at times. But I remember I saw a special in 2000 that actually had these iconic characters meet for the first time, and that was the Scooby-Doo Courage the Cowardly Dog Scare-a-thon. Now let me clarify, I'm not talking about those famous promos and bumpers from back in the day that showed all these characters interacting. No, this was a Sunday night marathon that showcased Scooby and Courage episodes.
It's the Scooby-Doo Courage the Cowardly Dog Scare-a-thon, and your vote will decide which dog is the scariest. All next week at 7, only on Cartoon Network.
Something that was cool about Cartoon Network back in the 90s and 2000s was how they used to market these marathons. They were always treated like a big event that you had to see. You didn't care they were cartoons from 40 years ago or episodes you've seen a billion times already. Whatever they did, they got your attention and got you in front of the TV. They were pretty creative as well, and nowhere is that shown than their Scooby-Doo marathons. Like the popular Blair Witch spoof, the Scooby-Doo Project.
Shaggy, what are you doing in the corner?
I'm scared, man! Like scared!
Or the very obscure Night of the Living Dew.
Oh, you're right. We just need a good night's sleep.
I can't wait to get out of these clothes and into my jammies.
Yeah, me too.
But wait, we don't have any jammies.
By the time of the Scare-a-thon, Courage was about a year old, but quickly gained a huge fan base. In fact, its debut in 1999 was the highest rated premiere in CN's history at the time, becoming more popular than another new cartoon that premiered that same time, Mike Lou and Og. But back to the Scare-a-thon. The marathon was part of a sweepstakes sponsored by Cheetos, in which viewers who voted for the most scared dog online could possibly win a trip to Roswell, New Mexico. It was also promoting the then new direct-to-video release, Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, which had a Courage cartoon as a special feature, the famous King Ramses episode. As for the winner, I definitely remember who won. It was Courage. The commercials leading up to the marathon showed the Scooby-Doo gang encountering an alien spaceship, then having to find a phone to call for help once they're stranded in the middle of nowhere. They stumble upon a farmhouse which is owned by Eustace, Muriel, and Courage, whose power is out. So while they wait, they pass the time telling ghost stories. Recently, VHS archivist Captain BZ found one of the segments to the marathon. This is particularly interesting because it featured an innuendo that went over my head as a kid.
You're back. Wonderful. Where were you, Freddy?
Daphne and I were... Oh, well, I was just trying to start the mystery machine.
And I found him there, and then we started talking, and time kind of got away from us, you know?
Right, Daphne.
And probably one of the few times Courage and Eustace actually speak to each other.
Move in closer, everyone.
Muriel, I move to have someone else tell a story. I know where this is going.
I don't think you do.
You have a new story?
Yes.
With a different ending?
Yes, you crazy dog.
I'll post a link below so you can see the whole clip. And hopefully more segments from the special will be found and uploaded soon. I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly. Well, you heard me gush over the Cartoon Network Powerhouse era and how important it was to me growing up, and for the channel in general. Now let's talk about their second best era, CN City. Originally this video was going to cover the full City era timeline, but Shadow Streak already covered that in much more detail, so check that out when you get a minute. But today, I'm going to talk about the year that stood out the most. So let's take a nostalgic trip to 2005.
There you go.
2005, as you all know, was a busy year in entertainment, especially in television. It was the year Family Guy was brought back from the dead, reality shows were on the rise, and hit comedies like It's Always Sunny, Robot Chicken, and The Office debuted. In kids programming, Disney Channel continued to pump out hit shows for the tween demographic, while Nickelodeon would end one of their flagship shows and revived their most popular one after a hiatus. They would break new ground, debuting a little show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. While over at Cartoon Network, their then still pretty new rebrand CN City was in full effect, with its memorable bumpers. For those who don't know, during commercial breaks, the network would air these short bumpers showing every Cartoon Network, Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, and MGM character in one setting. This huge CGI city. It was really creative. Where else would you see Johnny Bravo and Samurai Jack doing laundry, the Edge trying on Ami and Yumi's clothes, or Mandy and Raven interacting? There was nothing else like this at this time. And let's not forget the new logo, which is just a C and an N, and a new announcer, a young woman named Nikki.
Now it's Codename Kids Next Door. Then it's Atomic Betty. This is Cartoon Network.
This new year saw the debut of new shows like Camp Lazlo, featuring the misadventures of a monkey named Lazlo attending a Boy Scout summer camp named Camp Kidney, filled with other anthropomorphic animals. The show was very funny and had a very surreal sense of humor, almost having a Rocko's Modern Life feel to it, which is interesting seeing how it's done by the same creator, Joe Murray. The show would air its final episode in 2007. There was also The Life and Times of Juniper Lee. This Monster of the Week show featured a high school girl, the titular Juniper Lee, who's the only one who can see monsters and demons, both good and bad, as they are separated from the human world thanks to a magical shield. I liked this show when it came out, but I love it as an adult. The whole show is a good-natured spoof of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as well as having similarities to other Save the World from Supernatural and Get to School on Time cartoons, which is sort of a weird trend back then now that I think about it. On top of that, Juniper Lee is a likable protagonist. Some of the monsters do have great designs, and I do remember a lot of these side characters. And it does have Asian representation, which is really nice. The creator is Judd Winick, who actually has an interesting career, from starring in MTV's Real World San Francisco to writing Batman Under the Hood for DC Comics. The show ended in 2007 and fell into obscurity, but I really hope more and more people check it out. It's criminally underrated. Also, My Gym Partner is a Monkey, about a boy who accidentally gets sent to a school full of wild animals. Yeah, I was never a fan of this show. It was a bit too obnoxious at times. The show's creators were husband and wife duo of Tim and Julie Cahill, who actually wrote for much better projects. Finally, we have Ben 10, created by comic book group Man of Action, about a 10-year-old boy who could transform into different alien creatures thanks to a device called the Omnitrix. You're probably gonna hate me for this, but I never cared for this show. It's definitely a creative idea, don't get me wrong, but the characters just never did it for me. I just kinda thought they were dull. But hey, the show launched a franchise with toy lines, several incarnations, so joke's on me. But I will admit, that theme song kicks so much ass. For the viewers that weren't into the newer shows, there is the revival version of the Cartoon Show, where instead of original animated pilots, it would consist of reruns of older classic Cartoon Network shows that were no longer airing on the channel or recently ended. Speaking of classics, many of the old Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers cartoons had a permanent home at Boomerang. Tom and Jerry and the occasional Scooby-Doo cartoon will be the only classics running on CN. Ending this year, Megas XLR, Jenny Tartakovsky's Star Wars Clone Wars, and the original run of Powerpuff Girls. This wouldn't be the last time we see the latter two, as Clone Wars will be rebooted in 2008, and Powerpuff Girls will get several crappy revivals and specials. Returning this year, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Codename Kids Next Door, and Billy and Mandy. Also returning Ed, Edd and Eddy, which originally was supposed to end in 2004, but renewed for more episodes due to popular demand. This new season was notable for the use of digital ink and paint, as Ed, Edd and Eddy was the last show to use cell animation. On Fridays, co-host Nzinga Blake would lead the show and would be replaced by anime voiceover actress Tara Sands from that year until its end in 2007. In addition to Toonami still going strong on Saturday nights, notable blocks this year included Turkey Days, Cartoon Network's Holiday Rush, and the short-lived Tickle You. This was Cartoon Network's attempt to get into the preschool market. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Though definitely not the first time, this was when the network's identity was set in stone, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense to show cartoons aimed at toddlers on the same channel that showed raunchy adult cartoons late at night, admittedly. At least they learned their lesson and never made that same mistake again. Fuck! Cartoon Theater continued with no Don LaFontaine, but most notably, they added movies owned by Time Warner's competition and even live-action family films like The Goonies. Now, of course, we can't talk about this year without mentioning Cartoon Network's Summer. This was awesome. Remember when I said Cartoon Network's programming blocks used to be a special event you had to see? Well, case in point. I remember as a kid just graduating from 5th grade and being so excited to watch this. The bumper showed all the cartoons at this rock concert, which was a nod to Woodstock. I still remember certain ID spots too, like Laszlo with the ice cream. Speaking of which, this was also when Camp Laszlo and Juniper Lee debuted, as well as the premieres of Kids Next Door movie, Operation Zero, and the direct-to-video movie, Aloha Scooby-Doo. And let's not forget that catchy as hell theme. It never got this good again. The following year, it was replaced by the Yes era, and while not as bad as what was to come, it was...
I like music. I do. I like music that goes like la 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 la.
Trust me, if you thought Fred was kinda funny and Billy and Mandy, after watching these bumpers, you're gonna want to strangle him. As the years went on and Cartoon Network started to get their act together, I remember noticing they put in less effort in their bumpers and rebrands, and financially, I can see why. They can get really expensive. That's not the only reason. In my opinion, there was something magical and iconic about the Powerhouse's City era that can't be topped. But quite frankly, with TV dying and streaming services on a rise, why would they need to? A lot of the Cartoon Network shows, old and new, are available on HBO Max. And even I taken a liking to the newer stuff. I love Craig of the Creek. I'm warming up to Teen Titans Go, and I'm just getting into Infinity Train. Currently, YouTube is the place to see all these old bumpers of yesteryear, and a great reminder that these cannot be duplicated. They came out at just the right time. Who knows what the future will hold for Cartoon Network, but hopefully they will continue to entertain generations of cartoon lovers and kids just like they did us millennials. Until next time, I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly.
Just get on down to
Wow! Where's that again? Cartoon? No, that's not it.
We're talking toon here.
Cartoon Network has been well represented here on my channel. It's something that meant a lot to me growing up, as a lover of animation as well as a cartoonist. I was almost hesitant to make this video, because I figured people would have gotten sick of me talking about Cartoon Network by now. But then I thought, this is the 30th anniversary of Cartoon Network. I'm not just gonna sit here and not celebrate. But what should I do? I already talked about some of their most iconic blocks, as well as went over their history in my most recent Fantastic Legacy of Hanna-Barbera vid. So I think the better option would be talk about how I grew up with it and how much of an influence it had on me. So that's what we're gonna go over today. So without further ado, let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Liquid IV. Liquid IV is a hot new hydration drink that keeps you hydrated throughout the day. And if you work in a hot kitchen like me, you'll definitely need it. One stick of Liquid IV to 16 ounces of water gives you 2 to 3 times more hydration than water alone. You don't have to take my word for it. Take a look at the science of cellular transport technology, designed to enhance rapid absorption of water and other key ingredients into the bloodstream. Not only is it good for you, but they taste good as well. They come in all kinds of flavors, like passion fruit, lemon lime, and tangerine. My favorite is the passion fruit, and I have trouble sleeping at night, so the sleep multiplier drink is very effective, and I wake up feeling so good. Liquid IV is a great charitable company. With each purchase, they donate to someone in need, selling over 16 million servings globally and counting. You get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code 47cartoonguy. Again, go to liquidiv.com and use the promo code 47cartoonguy. Thanks again to Liquid IV for sponsoring this video. Now, on with the show. I guess the best way to start is from, well, the beginning. I was born in 1993. When I was younger, my dad was in the Army, which meant me and my family were on the move constantly. We lived in Anchorage, Alaska from 1995 to 1997, and we were living in this military housing facility in Fort Richardson. Even as a little kid, I watched a lot of TV back then. I remember specifically watching two channels. One was PBS. 90s PBS Kids, or PTV as it was called back then, was the shit. Much respect. And the other was Cartoon Network. My earliest memories of the channel would have been 96. I of course was introduced to all the iconic cartoons from the golden age. Popeye, Tom and Jerry, Tex Avery cartoons, and the Looney Tunes, which aired under several different names. This was also where I was introduced to many Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Flintstones, Jetsons, Yogi Bear, Scooby-Doo, Top Cat, Johnny Quest, the whole enchilada. This was also the time they were slowly but surely introduced new original programming to the channel, like the What a Cartoon Show shorts, the late night Space Ghost Coast to Coast, this was before Adult Swim, and their then most recent show, Dexter's Lab, with many other cartoons to follow. And I also watched reruns of Jay Ward shows, Rocky and Bullwinkle and George of the Jungle. There was also Garfield and Friends, and a 1960s anime, Speed Racer. They used to air a special called Japanimation, but obviously it was Toonami that had the bigger impact. It should be noted that this block was responsible for helping bring anime to the US, and for many kids, it was their introduction. I don't have much thoughts of Toonami. I watched stuff like reruns of Batman and Thundercats. I remember watching a little bit of anime like Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, but it wasn't really must-see TV for me. And I will say at the time, I wasn't into anime, unlike now where I have this huge respect for it. That's why I never done a video on it. And also the fact that Toonami has gotten enough attention as it is. Me and my family kept moving until we finally stayed in Richmond, Virginia in 1998. Wherever we went, I always made sure there was Cartoon Network on the TV. Even as a kid, I always thought Cartoon Network was something special. I put them on such a high standard when it comes to TV animation. And what I admire the most is their obvious respect for what came before, like classic cartoons from the golden age. I love stuff like Toonheads, which showcase the history of animators, as well as cartoons from that era, with interesting trivia as well. I would also be introduced to animators who would turn out to be my heroes. I'll never forget seeing Joseph Barbera and Chuck Jones in a top 10 greatest cartoons of all time special. And those package programs featuring shorts by classic animation directors, the Tex Avery Show, the Bob Clampett Show, and the Chuck Jones Show.
Super Chuck!
There's a new primetime lineup on Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Olio.
Cartoon Olio!
Programming blocks, marathons, and specials were a huge part of CN's identity. On Friday nights, I love watching Cartoon Fridays, and Saturday nights, I would tune in to the movie of the week with Cartoon Theater. Even during the summer, they would have blocks for reruns of their hit shows. I said it once and I'll say it again, when it comes to marathons and blocks on Cartoon Network, they did a good job of sucking you in. They made it look like an event you had to see. Yeah, there were reruns, but I didn't care. Like the big game specials that used to air every Super Bowl, and it featured classic WB and Tom and Jerry shorts. I never cared about sports, but it's really cool how they went the extra mile to spoof the Super Bowl. Even getting legit announcers like John Madden and Pat Summerall. All those creative bumpers, ID spots, and interstitials from all those different eras. Props to animation studios like Primal Scream and Animal Logic, and CN's promo department at the now defunct Turner Studios. As the years went on, Cartoon Network went through many changes. There were new shows, new blocks, new events, and a new era CN City, while the more classic cartoons were moved to Boomerang, Cartoon Network's second channel. Despite this, the channel was still worthy of the tagline, the best place for cartoons. But on December 8th, 2006, a made-for-TV movie would mark the start of an unfortunate trend CNN was trying to push in the late 2000s.
We're all in your head.
Except Pickles, he's in your ear.
We
Reanimated premieres Friday, December 8th on Cartoon Network.
Reanimated was about a kid named Jimmy who gets hit by a train at a Disneyland knockoff called Golly World, a theme park based around fictional animator Milt Appleday. In his cartoons, he gets a concussion and wakes up to find he can see the cartoons created by Milt, these incredibly annoying cartoon animals. Also, Milt's adult son tries to kill Jimmy, and also Jimmy tries to impress the popular girl in school, cause why not? This is a horrible movie. I watched this again recently for the first time in years for this video, and let me tell you, it was tough to sit through. A nonsensical story, bad jokes, and annoying and unlikable characters. But apparently it did so well, it had a spin-off out of Jimmy's head. An equally terrible show, which the only good it did was introduce us to Tinashe. The late 2000s was what I consider Cartoon Network's dark age. The only new cartoon I remember liking from that era was Class of 3000s. The others didn't do a thing for me. But also Fried Dynamite was the lame replacement for Fridays. The Nudes era was ridiculously cheap. Those imported Canadian cartoons, which I know a lot of people like them, but they just weren't my cup of tea. And that stupid Follow Something Growing This Invented song. I'll admit at the time I ignored stuff like Chowder and Flapjack, but now I really love them and I kind of regret missing out. Let's talk about the live action. While definitely not the first time seeing experimenting with it, I feel very strongly about live action shows on a network made for cartoons, because why would I want to see that? Even for Halloween for 2007 through 2008, they showed reruns of Goosebumps. Yeah, Goosebumps of all things. But let's be honest, there was a reason. In 2007, Disney Channel was the #1 cable network in prime time, and it was during their Hannah Montana, Jonas Brothers, Zack and Cody era. It even broke a record, averaging 2.694 million total viewers, while Nickelodeon introduced their popular iCarly series to hit ratings. Well, CN wanted a piece of that pie, and then President Stuart Snyder pushed for more live action. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Especially 2009 with CN Real. I know. I talked about it enough on this channel, but I'm not gonna go any longer. But I will be fair and say, not all of those shows were bad. Again, they just didn't belong on the channel. I can see them fitting better on something like Discovery Kids or Disney XD, which was pretty new at the time. CN Real did more harm than good, which led to the channel's ratings to decline. It even got so bad, they even brought back the Looney Tunes to fix some of the damage. Around this time, I was watching Adult Swim more than I was watching Cartoon Network. I saw stuff like Harvey Birdman, Robot Chicken, Boondocks, and reruns of Family Guy and American Dad. CN Real was the lowest point of Cartoon Network's history, but you know what they say, always darkest before dawn.
Adventure time!
A new cartoon coming in April to Cartoon Network.
You think he wants me to put the hurt on him?
Yes, I do!
Regular show. It's anything but. New series premieres Monday, September 6th at 8:15, right after Adventure Time.
Oh!
Only on Cartoon Network.
2010 marked a new era with Check It, a big step up from the Nudes, and 2 new originals airing this year, Adventure Time and Regular Show, created by 2 Cal Arts graduates, Pendleton Ward and J.G. Quintel, launching a whole new era of creator-driven cartoons on the channel. Both of these shows were huge hits, especially Adventure Time, which became the face of the network for many years, and launched a successful franchise. Personally, I like Regular Show a bit better. I like the characters more, and the surreal humor reminds me of those obscure cartoon shorts from the Big Pig. I feel the 2010s, at the very least, was CN's renaissance period. The success of Adventure Time and Regular Show led to a whole new boom of new cartoons for both Cartoon Network and Warner Bros. Animation. There was still crap like Problem Solvers, Almost Naked Animals, and Annoying Orange, some of the worst cartoons I've seen, and a live action stuff, which is pretty much on its way out anyway. In 2012, Cartoon Network celebrated their 20th anniversary all year long, with all new bumpers by Primal Scream, featuring old and new characters, new DVD releases, and a new Friday night block, a revival of Cartoon Planet. I don't remember what they did on October 1st that year. Maybe somebody in the comments will let me know. I was starting my freshman year in college and I wasn't watching that much TV. In 2013, they released Warner Brothers Animation's Teen Titans spinoff, Teen Titans Go, which is really popular because it aired way too damn much. Check out this schedule if you don't believe me. In 2017, they aired a short bumper for their 25th anniversary, similar to their Morphing era bumpers. It's cute, I guess. Now the year's 2022, and the network will be celebrating their 30th anniversary. In September, they brought back some of their older shows on their weekly night lineup. And on HBO Max, there's a special called Cartoon Network Animating Through the Years. I was expecting / hoping for a documentary, but it's a clip show, so whatever. They're even planning to release complete seasons of 2 of their classic shows on DVD. Now let me back up a minute. You see, in 2018, Cartoon Network's owners, Warner Media, formerly Time Warner, was acquired by AT&T, which led to a reorganization of the Turner channels, Cartoon Network, Boomerang, and Adult Swim. And today we're seeing it all unfold. Warner Bros. Discovery, especially that David Zaslav douche, is deleting the existence of some of their recent shows for a tax write-off, especially Infinity Train, which really pissed me off. They're even planning to get rid of animation altogether on HBO Max. Hell, they already started laying off the crew from the Bugs Bunny special that was in development. Meanwhile, on Cartoon Network, I'm not particularly thrilled with the return of live action and preschool programs. There are some new shows I'm excited for, like Tiny Toons University, Iwanu, Child of Wonder, and Jenny Tarkovsky's new show, Unicorn Warriors Eternal. Also, I can't wait to see more of those new cartoon shorts. A lot of them look really good. So after all these years, what exactly does Cartoon Network mean to me? Well, it means a celebration of all things animation. All the shows, the characters, the unforgettable worlds stuck with me as a child, and in many ways, as a 29-year-old man. As a cartoonist, CN inspired me to draw and create, and also show appreciation for the classics. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say this, but this channel changed my life. And if it wasn't for CN, I probably wouldn't be wanting to pursue a career in animation today. Animation is a medium that sadly continues to get so much disrespect. From idiot corporate bigwigs not seeing their value, to clueless celebrities brushing it off as children's entertainment that adults have to endure or some bullshit. But Cartoon Network deserves a lot of credit for its contributions to the industry and for helping inspire a new generation of artists. I don't know what's going to be in store for CN's future, but I hope it'll still be around, inspiring kids and animation lovers all around. Thank you, Ted Turner and Betty Cohen, for creating this brilliant, groundbreaking cable channel. Happy 30th anniversary, Cartoon Network. Thank you for everything. If you want to support this series and many other videos, click the link below to my Patreon. You get a special credit, early access, shout out to your channel or blog, even a commission by me. Every dollar goes into the production of these videos for software, research, DVDs, as well as help put food on the table. If you're not able to donate, you can also help by liking, commenting, subscribing, and clicking the little bell icon. I thank you, and I gotta fly.